So it's late at night. Just got done with the Game Dev Biz conference. Well, it was a while ago. But I'm sitting here. I'm looking over my last couple videos, and I realized yesterday's video was about refusing to be a victim. But there are a lot of, and the video was about how things in your past you shouldn't let them control your future. You should not be a victim to those things and use them as an excuse to not move forward. But I realized that that video is only helpful to people that have gotten out of their situation. There's a lot of people that are still stuck in those situations, that are still in those hardships, that are still in the middle of experiencing those negative things. And so I want to share a video with you guys today about the fog. And fog stands for fear, obligation, and guilt. Those are the three things that keep us doing things that we don't want to do. Those are the things that hold us back in life. Those are the things that stop us from moving forward. So let's kind of knock them out one by one, and we'll get each place as we do. So the first one is fear, and fear is really interesting. First of all, you have to understand that fear was designed as a human mechanism to keep us alive. The reason fear exists biologically is if we're sleeping and there's a lion, if we're not scared of the lion, we're going to die. That's why fear exists. So in our modern world, we don't have lions roaming around. So this fear of things is actually not that useful to us. It's not very helpful at all to be afraid of things. But our body thinks that, hey, we have this fear, we're going to use it. And usually fear comes up in fear of rejection, fear of social situations. But it also comes up if you have emotionally abusive people around you. Some people use fear to control you. Some people use fear to threaten you, to stay in your situation, stay the way you are, not change. And fear is one of those things that you really have to learn to face and overcome, because fear is very dangerous. It's not useful biologically that much anymore. I mean, obviously the fear of getting hit by a car will help you look both ways on the street. Stuff like that makes sense. But actual mental fear, like fear of rejection or fear of someone saying something hurtful, or the control that someone has over you based on your fear that they'll do something if you don't act the way that they want you to, or whatever, can really hold you back in life. So you need to be aware of it, and you need to, if you feel fear, you need to ask yourself why you feel that fear. What is the source of that fear? Where is it coming from? And why is it affecting me so much? You need to ask yourself those questions, because if you can't identify where the fear is coming from, it can just build up in the form of constant stress and constant anxiety, and cause all kinds of health issues, and it can really hold you back from moving forward in life. So the second one is obligation. And again, when we're talking about emotionally abusive people, obligation is actually something that a lot of people use under the radar to control people. And it's really important that you understand the sense of obligation, because there's so many times where we feel that we have to do things. We feel the sense of obligation. We feel that for whatever reason, these are just things that we have to do. And this can range from all sorts of things, like taking care of somebody, or helping someone out, or obeying their favors, or even just doing what they say, or even it can stem from childhood too. There can be some things that you think you're obligated to do just because you've always done them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do them. And I think it's important that you really question why you do the things you do. If you're doing favors for someone, or you're listening to what someone says, or they have something to say about your life, why do you feel a sense of obligation to them? Why do you feel like you have to do what they have to say. It's probably one of the other two. It's probably fear or guilt uh, giving you that sense of obligation. But obligation isn't real. It doesn't exist. You don't owe anybody anything. Like, really think about that. You don't owe anybody anything. Like, you are not obligated to do anything that you don't want to do. And we can trick ourselves into thinking that we do have to do some things. And these things can stress us out because we feel like we have to do them. We feel like for whatever reason we have to take care of these things. We have to listen to these people. We have to constantly do things that we don't want to do just because we've always done them, or because it's expected of us, or because our parents think we should do it, or because our social group would look down on us if we don't. But you are not obligated to do anything that you don't want to do. So let's talk about the third one. So guilt. And guilt was a big, 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 big factor in my life. I've always had a tendency to kind of face fear, but guilt was a massive controller in my life. And a lot of the people around me, some of the negative people, they'd control me with guilt. They would use it to their advantage to make me feel obligated to do things for them, or to live my life their way, or to not move forward for whatever reason. And guilt can kind of creep up. A lot of people don't realize that it can be a form of emotional abuse, but it is. And I know I love my mom to death a lot, but she tends to use guilt to try and get her way. And, we have a great relationship. I love my mom. I talk to her almost every day. But it's something that she does. And at first I didn't realize it, because when you think about people that are negative, or that are hurting you, or that are stopping you from getting places that you want to go, it's hard to think of people that otherwise might be supportive, but they make you feel guilty. They intentionally use guilt as a mechanism to control you. And it's important that you just kind of analyze why you're doing the things you're doing. And again, it's probably for fear, or for guilt, or a sense of obligation. And usually the sense of obligation can come from fear or guilt. So it's usually one of the two. But guilt is something that's actually very powerful. And it's especially powerful to introverted programmer types like myself, like a lot of people on this channel, where we are extra susceptible because we're nice people, right? Like, we don't want to be dicks. We don't want to be assholes. But sometimes people take advantage of us wanting to do the right thing, of us wanting to help, and they can turn it into a form of guilt. And that can control you in a lot of negative ways. It can hold you back from a lot of different things. So overall, these three things, they create the fog. And the fog really is something that stops you from progressing. It stops you from moving forward. It stops you moving out of the victimhood to where you can actually refuse to be a victim at that point. Like, it keeps you in the situation. As long as you're in the situation, you don't even realize that you're going through it sometimes, and that can kind of stop you from progressing in life. And I know a lot of people that are stuck in the fog, whether it's with parents, whether it's with girlfriends, boyfriends, sometimes even siblings, their roommates, the list goes on. But there are a lot of people stuck in the fog that I know, and they are controlled by their peer groups or by these other people in subtle ways. There's not like a puppet master thing going on, right? Like, it's not like these people are bowing down to people that control them. No, it's not like that. It's more subtle. It's more when you go, like, let's say you're gonna spend a night working on your game, someone can say, oh, I thought we were gonna spend some time together, or, oh, I thought you'd want to go to dinner with me, or whatever, like stuff like that. That can be using guilt. to control you in a way. And literally, their intention may not be to hurt your future in your project, hurt your game development, hurt your alone time. Their objective can just be to literally spend more time with you, but that doesn't change the fact that they're controlling you, in that case with guilt. And same thing with fear, right? Like, I've been in situations where people they controlled some stuff financially, especially when I wasn't in great shape financially. There were people that held that over my head, and they used that to get me to fear what they could do. And so, in a sense, they controlled me in a way to be the kind of person that they want to be, do the kind of things that they want me to do, and they would use that as a control mechanism to get me to do the things that they wanted to do. Of course, that was always less effective for me than guilt was. So the hardest things to get over, I won't say the best because this is shitty things we're talking about here, but the hardest things to get past are when it's combinations of the fog, when it's fear, obligation, or guilt, or multiple ones of those, because those are the ones that are like really, really hard to get past. And if you're in these situations, these situations can feel real. They can feel like there's real fear there, like there's real danger, like this person could take away my housing, or maybe cars in their name, or whatever, like random stuff it could just happen. Guilt, same thing. It maybe it's not intentionally negative, but it can still hold you back. And so finding ways to either strengthen your boundaries where you can stop these things from interfering with your life, or to remove some of these people completely, and you don't have to I've had guilty people in my life that try to control me with guilt, and I don't call them up and say, hey, you're trying to control me with guilt, so I'm going to cut you out of my life and never talk to you again. You can just kind of back out, right? Like slowly stop responding, or slowly stop seeing them, or whatever. I've had to do this with several people just because I want to move forward in my life. I don't want to be held back by these obstacles. And and good friends actually will pay attention. If you have a really good friend, or a sibling, or someone that will actually listen to you when you talk, sometimes you can mention this stuff to them, and if they're open to it, and they're somewhat self-aware themselves, they can possibly course correct with you. So you don't always have to cut people out of your life, but I've had to cut people out of my life in several occasions just to kind of keep progressing. But I just wanted to share that with you guys because I know a lot of people are still struggling with stuff. And I know this stuff, it's not game dev related, but it gets in the way of making stuff. It gets in the way of programming. It gets in the way of moving forward with your life, and anything that does that can stop you from making games. So I wanted to share it. If you're in a situation like that, or you've been controlled by the fog, leave a comment below because I'd love to hear from you as always. But once again, I'm Tim Ruswick, and I will see you guys tomorrow.